We are live again, back at it, pulling double duty tonight. Let's get started. Today is May 20th, 2026. I think the two most pressing things on my mind right now are the lessons that we've learned from the election in Kentucky. And, sorry, I got this, I should say hello, hi, hello everyone. How are you doing? Welcome. Happy for me, happy for you, happy for us. We hit 100K last night. It was very celebratory. I had a great time on stream. Thank you so much to this community. I'm very happy to still be here, okay? So the two things that I want to talk about are, at least first and foremost, is the lessons learned from the Massey election, or the lack thereof. And there's this interview of Jeff Bezos that everyone is reacting to. I thought we might take a look at it. It's all anything that anyone can talk about on Twitter. So I woke up to that, and again, they're rehashing the same tired old talking points. It never changes. The things that they say have been debunked time immemorial, and they never have to amend. They never have to adapt. They never have to evolve. So with that in mind, let's play this clip of Jeff Bezos being interviewed on CNBC.
Good morning. We are here on the factory floor this morning of Blue Origin, and we are here with Jeff Bezos, the founder.
Hopefully you guys can hear all of that okay. Let me know if you have any audio issues. But we should be okay in that regard. Now, I wonder why the sound is so terrible.
Blue Origin, also, of course.
You think they could have picked a quieter place to do this interview? No, he has to flaunt his rocket ship company.
Founder of Amazon. It is great to see you. This is remarkable, by the way, just the scale.
Why does he look like a Syrian uncle?
Of it. We've been talking about it all morning, but of all the people that we could talk to about everything that's going on in the country right now, in the economy, AI, jobs, space, we want to talk to you. And there is so much to talk about. We're going to touch on that, policy, politics, and so much more.
Wait, hang on. Wait. Why is the chat box not working? This is an abomination. Why is that not pulling up? What's wrong with my master chat? Oh, gosh, I should have checked this. There's always one thing that escapes me. And I'm not sure why we don't have a chat box. I'll try to get that figured out while we play this.
But one of the topics that I thought we should talk about, and maybe even start with, is these days, it feels almost impossible to pick up a newspaper without reading a headline about wealth in America, about the billionaire class, about wealth inequality and policy and everything else. And it's taken a uniquely critical turn, I think. And I'm so curious, before we even get into everything else, what you think about that right now.
Well, first of all, Andrew, I'm glad
God, this sound is just terrible. I hear more of the room than I do hear of them. Okay, I think I got the chat box to work.
Asking the question, I think it's a really important topic, and I think it's an important one to discuss, because I see the same thing you do.
It's an important topic. Why is Jeff Bezos turning Lebanese? I think he's turning Lebanese. I really think so.
A bunch of headlines, you see it in a bunch of places. And I have been thinking about, like, what is driving
maybe we should think about what the wealth inequality says about the present situation. I mused from my mega yacht as I wafted farts from a champagne flute. I thought maybe the workers need more money.
Seemed different from 10 years ago, and I think what's going on is that it's kind of a tale of two economies. So you have a bunch of people in this country who are doing really well.
It is a tale of two economies. Imagine that.
Well, but you also have a bunch of people in this country who are struggling to pay rent.
I'd say you have a very small group of people doing extremely well, and you have a huge amount of people doing badly, or at least living precariously, living insecurely. day to day.
Trees, and so
he's ever so gingerly outlining the class war that we speak about so often here on the stream.
What's happening here is politicians are using the kind of age-old technique. So there's this tale of two economies, and they're using this age-old technique of picking a villain and pointing fingers. But the problem is...
Well, what are you doing right now, Jeff Bezos? You're pointing the finger at those politicians.
That doesn't solve anything. And so
everybody's pointing the finger. The government, the high-profile politicians are calling out these billionaire elites. The billionaire elites are pointing the finger at the politicians.
Like, if you want to help the group of people who are struggling...
Just say the working class, Jeff. Why are you so averse to saying the C word? The group of people that are struggling. Yeah, most Americans, you dumb fuck. 192 million Americans can't afford a minimal quality of life where they can preserve some facet of human dignity at this point. That's according to recent studies. Okay, I didn't make that number up. The majority of Americans live precariously. This group of people that seems to be struggling.
Figure out real root causes and solutions, and that takes skill. It's like the way if we have a problem at Amazon.
Please, let's use your Amazon business practices as a way of, explaining the prevailing political economy and all of its inequalities.
So we would go in and...
Hey, thank you, Mikey. I appreciate that. Mazel tov for 100,000 subscribers. We love you, buddy. I love you back, and I love this community. I tell you guys all the time, and thank you for every time I get kicked out or kicked down, you guys dust me off and pull me back up, and I do mean that sincerely because it's happened so many times. So hats off to you. Not tiny hats, though, just the proverbial metaphorical hat off to you. By the way, hats off. That's actually a rule in this stream. No hats allowed. Okay, I don't care if they're tiny. I don't care if they're small. I don't care if they're medium, extra large, what have you. There shall be no hats on heads in this stream. Are we clear?
We do the 5 whys, and we try to get to a root cause. We try to find a root fix. And then when we fix it at the root...
Then we fire all the workers, and we lobby the government to write the tax code so that corporations pay no taxes, increasing the tax burden on the American working class. And we just rake in those profits, man. And we just make sure that all the workers are pissing in bottles and being monitored every minute. Check out my spaceship, though.
You're fixing it forever. It's a real solution. And what we don't do, because it doesn't work, is just point...
He's got a birthmark on his bald head shaped like 666. I'd believe it. He doesn't need any, metaphorical scarring. He's already got the scarlet letter on him at all times.
Fingers and blame people. It might feel good for 10 seconds, but doesn't accomplish anything. And so what could you really do? So, I started.
Do you have a plan?
He's literally said nothing for 3 minutes. The guy was like, "Hey, what do you think about this wealth inequality? It's all we're hearing about." And he's like, "Yeah, well, I've been thinking about it a lot from my mega yacht, and one thing about he's like outlining the situation. He's not offering any substance at all."
Well, I have some ideas. I have some places to start.
Oh, he's got some ideas.
So, if... Yeah, I started thinking about this and doing some research. A nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year.
So this is his pitch.
Pays more than $12,000 a year in taxes. Does that really make sense? So people talk about making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse in Queens not pay taxes?
This is such a tell to me, because the problem isn't that working class people pay taxes. It's that capitalist billionaires don't pay taxes. It's not that the fact that the nurse in Queens is paying taxes. It's that this motherfucker gets away with not paying any taxes. And that is historically provably true. according to a ProPublica expose in 2021, which I've cited in my work when I used to make a lot of TikTok videos, because I've talked about this for years now. But in 2007, Jeff Bezos, then a multi-billionaire and now the world's richest man, did not pay a penny in federal income taxes. He achieved the feat again in 2011. Same for Elon Musk. They regularly pay zero in income tax because they don't report a cash salary. They don't live by those rules. You know, we'll get into it in a second. I have a lot more on this subject, but we'll keep going.
Why is somebody at all? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes?
Why does a person who has $270 billion of their private fortune receive zero or put forth $0 in taxes? That's the real problem. It's the upward transfer of wealth, the fact that it flows into ever fewer hands over time. The infinite accumulation of wealth and commodities always goes to ever fewer people. That is the predicament we're in. And he's trying to tell us that we should, don't worry about taxing old Jeff Bezos. He can't help out the situation. You got to just alleviate the tax burden on the bottom half of the population. Well, the way to do that is to actually tax wealth, passive wealth, to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars for some of these people. It's an ungodly amount of money, and there's no good argument that can ever be produced that would ever justify such wealth hoarding.
That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or groceries.
That guy, just him speaking in that sentence, he made $1,000. Just going, 1 second to the next. It's like his net worth is skyrocketing as he speaks. Is he producing anything of value?
Or anything. And so, and by the way, do you know what that all adds up to? The bottom half of income earners in this country pay only 3% of the taxes. So, it's only 3%. We can find 3%. So we don't have, it's a small amount of money for the government, that. And really, and the more I thought about it, to me, it's kind of absurd that we're doing this. We shouldn't be asking this nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her an apology. It really makes no sense.
Look, we're sorry we grifted you for years and years, but here, accept this formal apology signed by Donald Trump. Well, I don't have health care. I can't feed my kids, but I do have this framed letter from Donald Trump apologizing to me about it.
Okay, but then on the other end, the question is, should you be paying higher taxes to pay for the 3% component part of this that you think needs to be paid for, if not more than that?
I'm pretty sure the answer is no.
It's certainly a perfectly valid policy debate to say, do we want an even more progressive tax system? So, the kind of the line that gets quoted all the time is, the wealthy should pay their fair share. Right. And we can argue about what the fair share is. That's a policy debate. That's okay. But the vilification is the thing that's just the distraction. And by the way, if you
quit vilifying billionaires, guys. Haven't they suffered enough? Won't you please think of the institutional shareholders?
Really are being honest about it. We don't have a revenue problem in this country. We already have the most progressive tax system in the world. The top 1% of taxpayers pay 40% of all the tax revenue. The bottom half pay only 3%. We have already, and I think it should be zero. I don't think it should be 3%. I think it should be zero. So we'd be making it more progressive that way. We actually have a spending problem.
Okay, let's just fact check him, okay? Let's just fact check him for a second. He said, if you were paying attention, let me see if I can find I made a response about this. So he said that the top 1% pay 40% of the taxes. But this is misleading, okay? He's talking about income tax. He's actually relying on your ignorance. So I clapped back at this. I'll just read this because it spells it out. I say the 40% statistic he refers to is just the adjusted gross income. It conspicuously leaves out the vast passive fortune of roughly $8 trillion held by the billionaire class in the United States today that is not taxed. It's misleading because billionaires don't earn an income or a salary. That's for Goyim peasants such as ourselves. They use a strategy called buy, borrow, die. Trillions of dollars in capital gains, not taxed, because they lobbied the tax code to be that way. And he's griping about the tax code. It's actually quite a tell because he spent something to the order of $230 million since 2005 lobbying the government for the abolishing of antitrust laws, corporate tax cuts, et cetera, increasing the tax burden on the working class, of course. He engineered this tax code. This tax code is exactly what Jeff Bezos paid his money for. And now he's saying, well, maybe we could tax the peasants a little bit less. But don't come for my taxes. That wouldn't solve anything. I'm building businesses. So I continue. They call it unrealized capital gains. This is the grift right here. It's unrealized. Although when they need to realize it, when they actually say, oh no, we do have that actually, they leverage that wealth to borrow huge sums of money from big banks on Wall Street, which cannot be taxed because when you take out a loan, that money is not taxed, and they live off that money. That's how they live. That's how they cavort around the world in mega yachts, etc. They all do this. Elon Musk did this to buy Twitter, for example. And that's how they skirt paying taxes and pretend they're pious because they always love to tell us, we don't take a cash salary. How pious of us. No, they don't play the same game as us. Remember, it's like Jeffrey Epstein told us. The Jew makes money by speculating on future markets, and they're basically gambling with other people's money. Meanwhile, the Goyim have to contend with the real world, the real supply chain. That's how this works. Well, the same can be said for the entire class dynamic, the class contradiction, the Epstein class versus the working class. They don't play the same game as us. And that's by design. So when you look at the big picture, the true tax rate of Jeff Bezos for his vast fortune is actually less than 1 percentage point. Some estimates put it at 0.9%. That's how much in taxes that he pays compared to his net worth, not the income that he claims on a yearly basis to the IRS. You see? You see how, that's not the game that they play. They don't survive on income. It's a good PR stunt tactic to tell the Goyim, hey, look, I'm just a hardworking class person just like yourself. So he's actually taxed less than the nurse in Queens that he used as a political prop to advance his agenda. And of course, people try to clap back at me. And they're like, there's a bunch of bootlickers in these chats, in these comment sections. But there's a huge study that was done. This is the study, like I was referencing. It's called The Secret IRS Files. The trove of never-before-seen records reveal how the wealthiest avoid income tax. There's all these legal loopholes, all this shit that nobody really thinks about, nobody really knows, but they know. They're doing this. And they're able to, like I say, engineer the tax code. This is why they lobby the government. This is why they spend millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of dollars buying off politicians. That's why they spend so much money on it. Taken together, it demolishes the cornerstone myth of the American tax system that everyone pays their fair share and the richest Americans pay the most. The IRS records show that the wealthiest can, and perfectly legally, pay income tax that are only a tiny fraction of the hundreds of millions, if not billions, their fortunes grow each year. So just understand that hypocrisy. When it's time to be taxed, they claim that their profits are unrealized. It's just up in the ethos. But when it's time for them to want to buy something, like a mega yacht or Twitter, they say, "Oh no, we have the money. Look, it's sitting there. Look at our stock portfolio," and they use that wealth as leverage, as collateral, to afford a loan from Wall Street to the tune of millions, if not billions, of dollars in some cases. Elon did this for $44 billion famously when he bought Twitter. And they live off that money, and they never have to pay taxes on it because it's a loan. And because of the way that inheritance works, they can pass that wealth on to their kids, and it's always free. They never have to pay taxes on it. And this is an abomination. This is an evidence. This is evidence of social injustice, policy decisions that are that betray a very real bias, and which should be addressed. Many Americans live paycheck to paycheck, amassing little wealth and paying the federal government a percentage of their income that rises if they earn more. Income tax, that's tax on labor. Wealth tax, which is non-existent, is a tax on capital. But notice, we live in capitalism, right? It's everything, the laws, the rules, the codes, they're all written by capitalists. So pretty interesting, pretty convenient that only labor gets taxed and capital doesn't. That's an arbitrary rule that was placed there by the ruling Epstein class for political reasons. And just as it was consciously put into effect, it can be consciously undone. We can change these decisions. That's why it's so instrumental that capitalists control the government. I mean, it's so instrumental for whichever class in this contradiction controls the government. That's why it's important to first focus on the economy, of course. So in recent years, the median American household earned about $70,000 annually and paid 14% in federal taxes. The highest income tax rate, 37%, kicked in this year for couples on earnings above $628,000. So when he says that the top 1% pays 40% of all the taxes, well, they took out the piece of the puzzle before they presented it to us. You know, there's a huge portion of wealth that is basically not even talked about, not even discussed, but it's very real. They can use it when they want to, and then claim that they don't have it when it's disadvantageous for them to claim that they have it. But they took that, they showed you the game, but they didn't tell you what pieces they took off the board first. And then they're saying, well, look, this is how it is. Well, yeah, you're just explaining us the rules of the game that you created, you contrived. We're calling out the actual game itself. We're saying it's corrupt. It's illegitimate. And inevitably, capitalist bootlickers will defend their overlords, and their greatest talking point in their defense is to simply explain how capitalism works. Or they condescend and say, well, you don't know how finances work, or you don't know how the economy works. What you're doing is you're actually just showing us that you don't understand how capitalism works. And you equate capitalism to be just some, law of nature, like we talk about. It's everything. It's commerce. It's commodities. It's human nature. But it's everything except for the thing that it actually is, which is the private ownership of public resources and the exploitation of labor. So Jeff has been, quote, tweeting people that agree with him in his echo chamber. He says, thank you. The important part is zeroing out taxes on the bottom half. He loves this phrase, zeroing out. Best way to put money in someone's pocket is not take it out in the first place. Yeah, that's a great indictment of capitalism right there, buddy. Exactly what you've done. The bottom half is only 3% of total tax revenues, but very meaningful to that person. Zero it out, he says. I said billionaires patronizing us about the tax code they wrote. Shut the fuck up, Jeff. You're up next, buddy. You feel me? I said, Jeff wrote this tweet from his $500 million mega yacht. A billionaire is lecturing us on how best to distribute wealth in our society. What a time. This man spent millions and millions over decades lobbying D.C. for tax breaks for his companies and himself, increasing the tax burden on all of us so that he could afford more yachts and rocket ships. Now he's paying lip service to a Band-Aid reform of a problem he socially engineered. Why? To rehabilitate his image as a petty thief? Capitalist bootlicker number 1. Facts. It's great that Jeff Bezos thinks this way, because too many people who don't make money think that giving money to the government will solve a lot of their problems. What's funny is that we do give money to the government, and it does solve a lot of problems. The problems for the capitalists, for the billionaire Epstein class. That's the problems that we solve. We don't solve our problems. The problem is not the government itself. The problem is the corporate capture of the government. He who controls the gold makes the rules. He who controls the economy controls the politics. That's how it flows. I don't make the rules. I'm just observing. It's factual. If you don't like it, cry about it. I don't know what to tell you. That's just how the world works. They think these government programs are the answer, and it's clearly not. This dumb bitch. You can look at the federal level or the state level. You'll see that a lot of government programs are simply waste. I said, you're a goofy bitch. We already give money to the government, and it solves tons of problems for billionaires and banksters who rely on it to keep their multinationals solvent. It's called privatization and corporate welfare. Did you sleepwalk through the past 15 years? Hello? The 2008 housing crisis, the bailing out of the banks multiple times, bailing out the automobile industry. That's why we call it too big to fail. These corporations are too big to fail. They have to be propped up by nanny state policy decisions that make sure that they infuse a lot of cash into their bankrupt institutions. Got to keep the grift going. It's like we have example after example after example of this shit, and people still are impervious to seeing it. So I was, obviously Jeff Bezos, he's got an idea, right? Obviously the idea is not that the working class is correct and we should be appropriating the wealth hoarding of the billionaire class. The problem is that, not that billionaires don't pay taxes, it's that the bottom half of the population don't pay too much. That's his thesis. And when he's confronted with the prospect of, doubling or tripling his taxes, he said, that's not going to solve any problems. That's not going to do anything. Don't come for my money. It's like this guy that has $270 billion is lecturing us on how he can't, it's just economically impossible for him to help the poor. I asked a question to Google. I said, how much would it cost to house the homeless in America for 1 year? And let's just take this analysis at face value for a second. It says estimates to house all homeless people in the U.S. range from $10 billion to roughly $30 billion annually. Okay. So I was thinking, how does that compare to the private fortunes of people like Elon Musk? I said, what's 1% of Elon Musk's total net worth right now? His total, they're just going to call it at $7 billion. So $7 billion, just 1% of his total net worth is $7 billion. That is incredible. Just reappropriating 1%. He could be, that's just 1%, folks. And it would solve homelessness for 500,000 people for a year. They have appropriated, robbed us of trillions of dollars. And just in the past 6 years since COVID, there was a study done. Let me see if I can find it. What was the study done by Oxfam during COVID, which proved that the upward transfer of wealth, love that phrase, to the top 1%, where is the percentage? Amounted to, I want to say it was like $20 trillion, just something like 20 trillion. Let's see what they say. Let's find that study. It says the study you are referring to is titled Survival of the Richest, published by Oxfam International in January 2023. The report revealed that $42 trillion in new global wealth was created between December 2020 to December 2021. So 1 year, $42 trillion. Out of that total, the richest 1% siphoned off $26 trillion. We're talking about globally, right? 26 trillion went to the richest 1%. That's 63% of the total new global wealth created in that fiscal year, leaving only a fraction for the remaining 99% of the global population. And I'm sure as you go down the income scale or the socioeconomic scale, it's even more paltry. Key findings. Oxfam tracked this economic divide across multiple annual studies released during the World Economic Forum. Their data highlighted several major benchmarks regarding the upward transfer of wealth. This is capitalism for you. Remember, as I say, there's always really simple statistics that we could start with to explain with a broad stroke what is happening in our world and why. What is to explain for the mass poverty, the mass violence. Documented that the top 1% captured nearly twice as much wealth as the bottom 99% of the world's population. Now, in 2017, Oxfam did the same study, and they alleged that in the past 40 years preceding 2017, basically the entire neoliberal period going back to the 70s, something on the order of 50 trillion was, quote unquote, transferred upward to the top 1%. So this is a historical process that's been going on for decades now. The groundwork has been laid. We've removed ourselves so far from the center that we can't even remember where we came from or what this was all about. We just accept it, you know? It's like the newer generation, it's all they ever knew. It's all they ever known. So they don't have anything to compare it to. They don't really, unless you look in history, you have to really go and sift through it to understand and explain what's happening now. But that's a lot of work. I'm going to try to find some more of these comments here. I thought some more people disagreed with me. None of this is true, man. Bootlickers. Just bootlicker after bootlicker after bootlicker. And again, whenever they come after me, it's always the same story. They either attack me for I don't know, my hair or how I look, or whether, because I'm a musician, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not an economist, so I can't understand basic rationality. He says, this guy Carlos says, better keep playing music, man, because you have no idea about finances, capital gains. LOL. It's a lot more complex than that. But lefties only have that argument. No, righties, capitalist apologists such as yourself, only ever tell us, that's not how capitalism works. You dingleberry. We're calling out the fucking system. You're not even understanding the argument yet. You're still in the box, trying to explain capitalism to us. At least this guy understood the assignment. He says, keep blindly supporting the mega wealthy, you ignorant loser. This is exactly how Musk, Trump, and Bezos live. They don't pay income tax because they don't have income. They take loans to finance their lifestyles. This dumb fuck literally says, I do the same. He does the same as Jeff Bezos. He says he does the same and he's not rich. He says, I have two small W-2, not sure what that means, which I used to pay, two personal loans, $80,000 each. He's paying off loans of tens of thousands of dollars, and he's trying to say he's like a mini Jeff Bezos. I swear, it's like they prove the meme true. They're not, they're not capitalist bootlickers. They're not peasants. They're temporarily embarrassed billionaires. They're going to get theirs. They just got to grind harder is all. And of course, actually, you do the same. You're just ignorant, lazy, and dumb for not doing it. And I'm not even a millionaire. Like, that's a flex for you? Are you kidding me? You're only proving that you have no spine. And you're simping for people that undermine your very existence and who will melt you down into biomatter and use you as jet fuel for their next flight to space if it came down to it. What are you doing? Class consciousness is knowing what side of the fence you're on, and class analysis is knowing who's on that side with you. And Carlos is not on that side. He thinks he's part of the team. He thinks he's in the club. He's doing buy, borrow, die, right? Somebody else told me, oh, well, we do the same thing with our 401ks. Are you kidding me? You think a 401k retirement plan is equivalent to buy, borrow, die strategy of billionaires? I wish I could find that comments because I actually lit into them. Let me see if I can find it. I'm pretty sure it was the same thread. Yeah, see this guy, he's like, the defense is that you aren't taxed for unreal. See, they just explain capitalism. Yeah, well, it's like we're saying you should tax wealth. You should tax passive wealth. I understand they call it unrealized gains, but like I just said in the post, like it's unrealized until they want to buy shit, until they want to buy Twitter, until they want to finance their mega yacht. Then it's very realized. It's like when it needs to be an asset, when it comes at a cost, no. It's not there. It's unrealized. So, we present that argument. What do they say? They say, well, the defense is that you aren't taxed for unrealized gains. You're just explaining how the IRS works. Yeah, dildo. That's what the fucking billionaire class, they wrote the tax code. They created the laws that the IRS uses, and those laws are very political. They're very economically biased to the class that's in power, the class that dominates the government, the class that dominates the economy. They wrote the laws. What about this do you not understand? Why are you trying to explain the rules of capitalism when we're calling out capitalism itself? So I think in your own analysis, or if you in your own dialectics, when you're encountering these people, Listen to what they say. I mean, it's really, don't be afraid to confront these people. They have no argument. And to the extent that they do, the argument is this. You're an idiot. You don't understand how capitalism works. He says, your 401k isn't taxed while it's sitting there. It's only once you take it out and realize those gains that you're taxed. Again, that's a false equivalence because buy, borrow, die, these using your passive fortune of hundreds of $billions as collateral to take out bank loans is not the same thing. They're not being taxed. They will permanently evade taxation because the money that they take out and they live off of, that's not taxed. He says, believe it or not, everyone takes these same advantages. It's just to a much lesser degree. Bullshit. I said equating a 401k retirement plan to the buy, borrow, die strategy is a false equivalence for many reasons. But for starters, every dollar in a 401k is eventually taxed as earned income. They force you to spend it, by the way. You don't have a choice, and that money eventually does get taxed. It goes back into the hands of the billionaires. Another thing is that a billionaire's private fortune, by contrast, relies on legal loopholes designed to permanently evade taxation, like I just said. You cannot use a 401k as collateral to fund a lavish lifestyle. You cannot borrow against it either. I think it's even capped. You can't use it as leverage. You can use it up until like $50,000. And then past that, it's like you get penalized. If you try to take out the money too soon, you get penalized. There's all of these ways to confine you. 401k is class war. Okay? It's breadcrumbs for the working class to placate them. To placate us. So that's a false equivalence. I hope you understand that. Let me go to my bookmarks because let's go through this. We'll go through some of the bookmarks for today, and then I will move on to talk about the Kentucky election. But I'm sure we'll encounter it because I know other people are talking about it as well here. Excuse me. So, a lot of people are clapping back against this propaganda from Jeff Bezos, and I'm glad to see it. So we're just going to read some, get some takes, some good points, I think. This person says 1/3 of Amazon workers are on government assistance because you don't pay them enough, speaking to Jeff Bezos. We are fully subsidizing the labor for your $1 trillion company. You are a parasite. Couldn't said it better. Let's see. This is, let me see. Should I skip around here? Here's another one. He says, Bezos ended shopping malls, big box stores, family-owned boutiques, bookstores, businesses of all kinds. He strip mined the U.S. economy and left you in poverty, a slave to your internet connection. All you've got now is that fucking cell phone. You'll never own a house or buy another new car because of this jackass and his broligarch friends. Fuck, that's depressing, but also based objectively. Jeff Bezos says, if I do my job right, the value to society and civilization from my for-profit companies will be much, much larger than the good that I do with my charitable giving. That's a nice, flowery thing to say, while also saying nothing, being extremely abstract and vague, making speculative value judgments about what good that you've done through your for-profit companies, because I've seen a whole mountain of evidence that actually shows the opposite of that. You've done a lot of harm to communities, to people, to your own workers. What are you fucking talking about? You can't even treat your workers right. But they always fall back on this. I create value. I create trillions of dollars in wealth. No, the working class creates the value. You sit back and collect the quarterly earnings checks that you get in the mailbox because of the value that the supply chain produced. And don't tell me that they, create, don't explain capitalism to me. I understand how it works. I understand it's, private capital that funds it. But look to China, okay? We don't need privatization to have innovation. We don't need privatization to have jobs. Obviously, there's been a whole history for eons and eons of human societies that have existed with an economy, with a working class, with commodities. And one thing that was consistently absent was a capitalist class of private owners. We didn't, that's not a law of nature. The ruling class will always want us to look upon the prevailing mode of production as a law of nature. But if you study history, you realize this is a flash in the pan, folks. It's actually been way more non-capitalist societies in history than capitalist ones. Capitalism is a recent invention. But they always say that. They always say, I'm producing so much value, it outweighs any charity that I engage with. And philanthropy is another bullshit thing. It's putting Band-Aids on a bullet wound that you just shot the gun and inflicted all this harm. And you're like, well, here's the Band-Aid. If philanthropy solved anything, it would have been, redundant by now. It would have been obsolete by now. Philanthropy does not solve shit. It's a way for them to write off, write off taxes. So if I do my job right, the value to society and civilization for my for-profit companies will be much, much larger than the good that I do with my charitable living. Power to the People says, tell that to the Amazon workers who were forced to keep working as their co-worker lay dead, which is a true story, or the Amazon workers who have had to piss in bottles to make their delivery quotas. Billionaires like Jeff Bezos bring no value to society for anyone except themselves. His entire fortune was made off the mass exploitation of labor and the mass extraction of resources that belong to the community. Workers make the economy run, which is why workers should own the means of production. Robert Wright gets it. He's always harping about the tax rate. So he says, effective tax rate paid by Jeff Bezos from 2014 to 2018, 0.98%, like I just told you in my opening monologue, if you will. Effective 2025 federal tax rate paid by Amazon, 1.4%. The typical tax rate paid by the average American, as we know, is about 14%. He says, just thought I should point that out. Jimmy Dore says, oligarchs love to pit working class Americans against each other and divide us between a false narrative of left versus right. The game is divide and conquer, as it has always been. The only thing they actually fear is us waking up and joining together against them. Your neighbor is not your enemy. The oligarchs are. Your neighbors are suffering under the same oligarchy as you are. We have much more in common than divides us. We share a common enemy. That enemy is the billionaire oligarchs who own everything, including and especially the government. Don't take the bait from the richest man in the world. Half the country is not your enemy. It's not left versus right. It's us versus them. It's top versus bottom. It's up versus down, and they know it. That's why they do everything they can to keep us hating and fighting each other. When we stop doing that, they lose and we win. And that's in response to, obviously, Elon Musk cannot go a day without foaming at the mouth and rage tweeting about the murderous lunatic left as he poses for photo ops with Benjamin Nosferatu and his son. Yeah, we know. We know that story. We know that whole song and dance, Mr. Elon Musk-stein. Let's take a look at Nico House's new video. It says Thomas Massey's loss shows us Israel officially conquered America without firing a single shot, and they're rubbing it in our faces.
Last night, it seems that Israel completed its conquest of America, and they didn't even have to fire a single shot. And I say that because Thomas Massey, one of the most popular incumbents in Congress, lost to some no-name AIPAC-backed candidate named Ed Goldrein. You see,
Yeah, one more thing about Elon Musk. It's like when you can't defend what you are and what you do, you gotta double down on murderous lunatic left.
Thomas Massey has gained a name for himself, becoming the only congressman consistently brave enough to challenge AIPAC, Israel, their wars, and the Epstein class in general. For example, Thomas Massey was the only Republican in 2021 to vote against funding to the Iron Dome. In fact, he consistently votes against giving aid to Israel, especially military aid. When there was a resolution introduced to honor the relationship between the US and Israel on Israel's 75th anniversary, Thomas Massey voted against that and against strengthening the Abraham Accords. He also voted against the legislation trying to equate anti-Zionism to anti-Semitism. And most recently, he introduced legislation to force AIPAC to register as a foreign agent. When you combine that with the fact that Thomas Massey, alongside Ro Khanna, was the congressman who forced the release of the Epstein files, yeah, you can probably expect there'll be some consequences. And those consequences look like at least $9 million coming from outside pro-Israel groups like AIPAC's United Democracy Project and Republican Jewish Coalition. And an additional $7 million from the Trump Alliance super PAC, MAGA Kentucky, which is primarily funded by Zionist mega donors like Miriam Edelson, Paul Singer, and John Paulson. In fact, Massey himself said that 95% of the funding spent against him can be traced back to the pro-Israel lobby. And the FEC filings are showing that that is actually likely true. Israel just showed the entire world that they control our elections. Israel just showed the entire world that they control our president. Israel just showed the entire world that no matter how popular you are, no matter how safe your seat is, they can spend any amount of money they please, put some no-name up against you, and take your seat away from you. And you have to think about it. Marjorie Taylor Greene left Congress because of the influence of the Israeli lobby. Thomas Massey is being removed because of the influence of the Israeli lobby. And unfortunately, at this moment, outside of maybe Rashida Tlaib, we don't really have anybody in the Democratic Party that's going to stand up to the Israeli lobby. Not any consistent way. I mean, the Democrats are responsible for funding a genocide, right? Like, can't pretend like that didn't happen. So if the billionaires are controlled by Israel, if the president is controlled by Israel, and now Congress has gotten rid of its
Peter, I feel you. I'm tired, boss. I don't know why. It's just such a simple comment. It makes me laugh.
as solid, consistent opposition. As far as Israel is concerned, that only means that Israel's controlling the entire country. And although there are going to be some people that call me anti-Samantha for laying out these facts, they are still facts nonetheless, regardless of how you feel about them. There was a coup yesterday in the United States of America.
Yeah.
And Israel won.
That's
so
right.
Now
it's
time
a
to see
coup.
what the American people are going to do about it.
Yup. I think we have to remember the way the government is set up is a rigged system. It's foundational to begin with as a starting point. You have to understand this. The Congress, the legislative branch, the body of government responsible for drafting and passing legislation to be enacted, is bifurcated into two houses: the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives we can think of as the people's house, theoretically at least. We know that's not really true, but in the sense that the amount of representatives a state has is proportional to its population. So the bigger the population, the more representatives. That sounds fair. The Senate, however, is the elite's house, the wealthy. The Senate represents the moneyed class, the private property rights of the landed aristocracy, as it were. That's why it was created. There are 2 senators elected from each state, no matter how many people there are. And early on, as I mentioned in Nick Cruz's stream, that senators weren't even elected by the public. They were appointed by state legislatures. And not surprisingly, the wealthy of each state controlled the legislature. That was later amended, but the Senate really has never changed its function. And over the years, the ruling elites have adapted and figured out new ways of ensuring that senators vote the way that wealth dictates, and to disregard the poor majority. That's, the Senate was created to, like I said, protect the property rights of the rich, because our founding fathers readily acknowledged what they considered the, quote, threat of excessive democracy. And I know Chomsky talks about this. It's a lot of, early on when I was learning about all this stuff, he was the person that I learned from. And despite what you might think of him now, of course, but he goes through it all quite correctly. And, James Madison, for example, he said that the role of the Senate was to protect the minority of the opulent against the majority. What does that mean? Protect the Epstein class at all costs against the majority, the public majority. Because Madison recognized that as populations grew, the voting power of the majority would be able to reappropriate the land belonging to the aristocracy. It's what's known as agrarian reform, which is what a lot of countries that we label as socialist, that's really what they're trying to do. They're trying to appropriate agricultural land, the private property in that country, which has been usurped and controlled and co-opted by American corporations. They're trying to kick out the American business model. They want their resources back. Well, that's no different with the domestic population in the United States. It's always the same. It's always the same war. It's always the same dynamic playing out. It's a very simple thing that's happening. And there's a lot of other things that there's a lot of information out there, obviously, but I think these are the finer points. These are the things that we should be paying attention to. So this was a problem. And democracy has always been a problem when it comes to doing anything other than lip service. So they, in the 21st century, they're called the Epstein class, right? They have a whole array of tools at their disposal, and this is an age-old tradition handed down and adapted. People get lost in the minutia of the machinery of everyday parliamentary politics, and I want to wring their necks and say, wake up. Why are we all so euphoric or despondent over an election campaign cycle? If voting mattered, they would make it illegal. How are we still falling for the same old trap? Who cares about comparing the voting track record of AOC with MTG when the very institution is the problem? It's absolutely maddening. Not to do my own comparing, but I feel maybe a fraction of a percentage point, of a tiny bit, the same way that early 20th century Palestinians must have felt when they kept beseeching the ear of the British Parliament so that they might advocate for their rights as a sovereign people. And the only way the British Parliament would even hear them is if they accepted that they had no rights as a sovereign people, as a prerequisite for negotiating with the British. It's a maddening catch-22. I mean, what exactly are they negotiating? Who invented this framework? Why are we thinking of it in these terms? And I like to talk, about the composite man. Steve Wyckoff's theory of the composite man. He thought it's best to understand the stock market as the motivations or the machinations of one person. If you understood that the stock market is just really being manipulated by one entity, one person, if you can think of it in those terms, you can play it like the composite man plays it. And I think that's true for Congress. I think it's true for, a lot of institutions that that dominate our lives. But Congress itself is being manipulated via strings by forces seen and unseen. Everything happening, you have to think, everything happening must at some point be intentionally spun into action to serve something. Whatever happens, it must be by design. Much like at a certain point we begin to think maybe Israel just wants to be reviled. Maybe that is the goal. It can't possibly be that they are this obtuse and non-self-reflective. But then again, maybe they go hand in hand. But whatever the theater or spectacle that front faces itself toward the public, there are very deliberate, conscious forces intentionally engineering and benefiting off of this behind the scenes, this fake interplay between Democrat, Republican, representative, and senator. And I was kind of looking into this last night, but did you know that representatives intentionally draft bunk legislation they know won't pass as a way to signal to their base that they're actually upholding their voters' interests? They pass things in the House of Representatives only to block them in the Senate. And notice here that given everything that I've told you, that it's the Senate that is the de facto decider. It doesn't go from the Senate to the House of Representatives. It starts in the House of Representatives and it goes to the Senate. How many times have we seen bills go through one house just to fail in the other? That's part of the theater. They even have a name for it. It's called message voting. Messaging voting, designed to placate, induce your consent, get you to believe there's this really authentic struggle happening in the halls of Congress. There's also the rotating villain theory. That happens quite a bit. There's always new names and faces that play that role. Sometimes all they need is just one congressman to break party lines and incredulously vote against their own party's wishes just to tank a bill. They've got the gerrymandering. They've got the filibustering. Is it really any surprise they have so many ways to subvert democracy? The actual will of the public majority. They have all the money, all the resources, all the time, all the energy. They've got all the brightest minds. They've got think tanks working around the clock, dreaming up new ways to fuck us. They know all of it intimately. They know all the players. They know all the moves. And here we are, like sitting ducks. So much money is spent. I just spit on my microphone. That was gross. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spit on you. What am I, Israeli? No, I don't think so. So much money spent on these theatrics. So much effort to manipulate the public consciousness, the public conscience, whatever. As long as you show up to the polls, though, it's all worth it, right? They want you satiated with breadcrumbs. And at this point, it's not even breadcrumbs. It's just the thought of breadcrumbs. They just want to propose the prospect of breadcrumbs so that you'll continue to vote blue no matter who or whatever the thing is. How are people even surviving right now? Think about it. What's the one avenue where we actually do have control? Is it in Congress? Do we have the power to even elect our own leaders? No. But we do have material power over the supply chain. That's a fact. We make this shit run, like Chris Smalls said. He was right. We have power over the economy. And that's why I always stress unions, working class actions, working class institutions, because out of working class actions, out of labor organizations, out of a strong labor movement, then will there arise the tip of the spear, the political tip of the spear, the vanguard party, if you will. So I want to zoom out right now because we're so focused, hyper-focused on the minutia. And it's a very revealing moment, I think, what happened in Kentucky. It says so much. I mean, just another example of Zionist subversion and Zionist astroturfing. And I think Nico House was absolutely right. It's a coup. I didn't even think of it like that, but that's what it is. Just the tip, just for a second, just to see how it feels. All right, let's keep going with these posts. Kevin O'Leary, he's still chirping away. Kevin O'Leary says, people in credit card debt shouldn't be buying coffee. If you have a credit card balance that goes into the next month and you're spending $5 on coffee, you're crazy. Why are you not playing my Whittle game correctly? If you want coffee? Play my little game first. It's called capitalism. It's called Monopoly. Oops, I win. That'll be $5 million. Sorry, work harder. Stop drinking coffee. That's the problem. It's you. You better police your own habits.
You have a credit card balance that goes into the next month and you're spending $5 on a coffee, you're crazy. Because
who's spending $5 on a coffee? It's at least $10 now. I would appreciate a $5 coffee at this point. Damn.
that $5 could have been used for $5 a day. Usually it's more because you're getting 2 coffees a day. You're getting one in the morning.
Oh,
one at
you
night.
better not go for seconds. That's where you fucked up, Goyam.
If I'll give you permission to buy a coffee for $5.
You will give me permission to buy a cup of coffee, jackass. Are you fucking crazy, you bald twerp?
If you have no balance on your credit card at the end of the month, 23% interest.
Dude, even your hair didn't like you. It was like your hair was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. This guy's so fucking annoying.
The reason I own all the credit card companies is people
His hair got smaller and his nose got bigger. Imagine that.
that are paying 20.
Kevin O'Learyberg. He should don a tiny hat and change his name to O'Learybergstein.
53% interest. Why would you do that to yourself?
Why would you do that? You wanted to have a nice cup of coffee? You're supposed to pay interest on the loan because I'm Jewish.
I can't make 23% in the market every year. Why would you let someone do that to you? And so, no coffees for you, except the one you make at home for 19 cents, unless you pay
19
off
cents? Are you crazy? I'm making a coffee for 19 cents.
your credit card. Why can't we agree on that?
I think if you're in credit card debt, for sure, but studies have shown that if you allow
He's dressed like he's at the strip club. I mean, let's be real.
yourself small indulgences, you'll be more likely to stick to a financial plan because you're not in a deprivation mode. So I'm not talking about $500 shoes or watches. I'm talking about a $5 latte that keeps you on
I forbid
track.
you to give people that advice. I forbid you. That's just horrible. You got to pay off your credit card.
Who the fuck are you, you condescending prick? They're just always cynical, condescending, patronizing, contemptuous. I like that word. Insincere. God, yeah, no air for you. Sorry, you like oxygen? Well, get rid of your credit card debt first, and then we'll talk. Capitalism is just paywalling human survival needs. That's all it is. It's incredibly sociopathic. It's incredibly gross, spineless, amoral. All the bad things that you can think of. Everything that you think about Donald Trump, you can say the same words to and characterize the prevailing political economy with the same words. It's the same thing. Oh, those people need oxygen. Well, water too. And hand rubbing intensifies. The Grabbler strikes again. Dan Bilzerian says, we need to impeach this Israeli shill. Donald Trump says, I'm right now at 99% in Israel. He might run for prime minister of Israel. He's so popular in Israel. And he's bragging about it like that makes him look good. He's historically unpopular in the country that he presides as president over. But he's historically popular. He's unbelievably popular in the country that he shills for, a foreign country, as president of the United States, and that would be Israel. He says, maybe after I do this gig as president of the United States, I'll go to Israel, run for prime minister. I hope you do. I hope you do, Donald Trump. Please, can we speed run that trip to Israel? Just fuck off. One more tweet about Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos' personal wealth, $270 billion. Amazon tax avoidance estimation, $50 billion. Average Amazon worker pay, $12 to $15 an hour. Percentage of countries in which Amazon's works and recognizes unions, 30%. You are the problem. This is what our society failed. Oh, this guy sucks. He's talking about small businesses. I wanted to share that because I was going to clap back at him. But we talked about it ad nauseum. But he tries to make a false equivalence between small businesses and fucking Amazon, the behemoth conglomerate that it is. There's a qualitative difference, okay, between a small business of like a therapy firm or something where you have a bunch of therapists working in the same building, and a conglomerate multinational giant that has vertically and horizontally integrated across multi-industrial supply chains. Okay, let's get real. There's a qualitative difference, okay? If you don't understand that, you don't understand much. I like this one. The richest people on earth constantly explaining why helping regular people is economically impossible. It's always fascinating. You can see I was going off earlier, just reposting all this stuff. Here he is talking about being the Israeli prime minister.
I'm right now at 99% in Israel. I could run for prime minister, so maybe after I do this, I'll go to Israel, run for prime minister. I had a poll this morning. I'm 99%, so that's good. But
99%. Did you hear that? I'm 99%.
I'm prime minister, and I just don't think they treat him well.
Mr. President, what do you do?
I think they have a president over there that treats him very poorly. And
you're on the same page with.
I'm right now.
So Nosferatu's not doing well politically at his home in his home base. It's gonna make you cry. A bunch of children smiling up at the sky. Israel looked at them and saw it's the latest terrorist. It killed them all. Zionists exterminate children, says Dr. Morandi. I would talk about this, but we hashed it out with Nick Cruz a little earlier if you missed it. But we grilled all of these liberal shills for crying about the anti-Semitism hoax. All right, I think that about does it for my reposts. Let's take a look now. I kind of want to look at there's some good podcasts going on right now. I think I saved some to my watch later. Let's check this out. So Max Blumenthal, anytime he makes an appearance, I got to watch. So let's hear his take on the Kentucky election. He's always insightful. I always learn so much.
Judging Freedom. Today is Wednesday, May 20, 2026. Max Blumenthal joins us now. So on the same day, and Max, a pleasure, my dear friend, on the same day that the government announced that it entered into a deal with the head of the government not to investigate or audit any of his tax returns, even though many of them were in the middle of an audit, the president mumbled something about the war's end and the stock market set a record. How long can some nonsense like this last? Or who made the profits from it as it happened?
Well, how long can it last? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I think we got another 3 years of this. And looking at the race in Kentucky, Trump is looking at that as kind of a mandate to continue this kind of behavior and do everything he can to insulate his family mafia and his cronies from accountability after this reign of unprecedented corruption ends. I mean, it's gotten so bad that Hunter Biden is actually on a kind of de facto national speaking tour launched on the Candace Owens show. Because at this moment, he looks, compared to Donald Trump Jr., He looks like Ralph Nader. He looks like
Well, there's no question but that the American consumer is paying for Trump's war. Now, I pay $5.25 a gallon for gas in Northwest New Jersey. It's probably worse in D.C.
Yeah, it's the Israel first price hike. I mean, this is because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which Trump was warned about by the National Security Council's director of the Iran desk, Nate Swanson. What did Trump do? He fired Nate Swanson on orders from Laura Loomer, who 3 days ago was justifying a mass shooting at a mosque in San Diego and maintains close access to Donald Trump. So here we are with the economy spiraling. Gas is over $6 a gallon here in the DC area, premium gas at least. I think one of the worst things for the economy is that everyone was expecting rates to go down, interest rates. They're not just going to stay the same. They're probably going to go up in July because of the crisis in bonds. The entire bottom of the economy is falling out, and middle-class people who already had very little hope of owning homes or owning the homes they wanted in this economy are just being crushed. You're also looking at $200 billion in lost economic output. The failure to cut rates could cost the economy $200 billion. So the real cost of the war, the Trump administration's estimated it at $25 billion. It could go up to $1 trillion if you look at the real cost of the war. Also, food production. This is already a crisis in Asia, but the lack of fertilizer, motor oil is now being panic bought by do-it-yourself oil changers. And AutoZone has actually put out a memo warning that they will face a 40 to 50% shortage in lubricant. Now, I understand that Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and Mark Dubowitz over at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies have probably never done an oil change on their luxury cars, so they might not be able to sympathize with this. But this is enormous for the American consumer, and it's really the working class American consumer who's feeling the pain. And what they need to understand is that they are hurting because of Trump's Zionist war. And Donald Trump, again today, I'm sure Chris has this clip, declared that he's 99% with Israel and with Netanyahu, and that he might run for prime minister in Israel when he's done being president of the United States. He's just flaunting it. He's rubbing it in our faces.
Well, he claimed on Tuesday that he canceled war plans for Wednesday today because the heads of Gulf states asked him to. None of those heads publicly admitted communicating with Trump in the past week, and 3 of them have actually denied that they made these requests. Is he contemplating these attacks, or is this just his personality and his way of negotiating?
He's absolutely contemplating an attack. And if he's not contemplating it, Israel is planning it, which would necessarily drag Trump in, given the amount of control and leverage they have over him. Israel is likely to escalate in Lebanon very soon in order to generate this kind of escalation in Iran. Israel can't do without a war. Netanyahu himself personally can't do without a war in Iran. And Donald Trump is likely to do it as well because he can't accept failure. He can't find an off-ramp. However, militarily, there are no objectives that he can achieve. It's practically impossible for him to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Consider what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Pentagon Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, said in testimony when questioned by Senator Richard Durbin of Illinois, asking him, why can't you open the Strait of Hormuz with this massive $1 trillion military against a country that spends a fraction of its budget on its military? And Dan Kane said, well, there are many small boats that could possibly harass our Navy and our boats, acknowledging that they have lost, the U.S. military has failed.
Yeah, wait, I thought, according to the President, the Navy was completely obliterated.
Donald Trump, when he says Iran's Navy has been destroyed, is lying. The IRGC stated today on social media that it hit a nuclear bunker in the Israeli city of Arad, which is actually the company town for people who work in Dimona at the secret nuclear facility. And they produced an image to illustrate their point. They also stated that they have upgraded their ballistic missiles several generations in the interregnum between the last round of conflict and the inevitable next one. These ballistic missiles will flood the airspace of Gulf states, especially the UAE. If Donald Trump attacks Iran, they will destroy desalination plants. They will destroy oil infrastructure. They will destroy the Fujairah port of the UAE, which had previously been a safe haven. And those countries will fall into existential crisis and doom, and possibly those monarchies will cease to exist. And so this is what Trump is citing as his reason for pulling back. But Trump could also be lying and using this as a kind of a ruse. So It could come any day.
Wow. Wow. What is your take on the defeat of Congressman Thomas Massie and the influence of the Zionist lobby in that Republican primary in Kentucky?
Well, I probably have too much to say on it for this, the short period of time we have, and there isn't much to say that won't overlap with what your other guests will say and what anyone who's been paying attention to what's been happening in this country the past several years will say, which is that Israel essentially rigged a Republican primary. And now, pro-Israel corporate talking heads like Jake Tapper are trying to claim that actually it was just due to Trump's popularity that Massie was run out. But who was he run out by? He was run out by essentially a warm body. I don't even know if it's a warm body. I would call it an Israeli zombie candidate, Ed Galrein, who claims to be a former member of Navy SEAL Team 6, is probably an analyst. He's covered up most of his record. It's shrouded in secrecy. He constantly declares that he was on secret missions in places that he can't mention. He doesn't engage with the press, did not speak to the press or answer any questions after introducing Pete Hegseth, the
I didn't know the motherfucker even existed. I thought he was an AI hallucination.
Secretary of War, who he falsely described as an Army Ranger, a bunch of guys inflating their military backgrounds and engaging in stolen valor. But it doesn't really matter. They could have run a potato with the amount of money that was being pumped into that fairly small rural district. We're talking about $35 million, making it the most expensive congressional race in history. The cost per vote, what is it? I'm
220, somebody said.
Be hazy, but there were about 100,000 votes. Over 10,000 of the votes for Ed Galrein were mail-in ballots.
Suspicious.
Ed Galrein received over something like 375% more of the vote than Thomas Massie's last challengers in 2024.
That's what Nick was talking about.
Very unusual. Was Thomas Massie 2020'd? I mean, that's what a lot of America Firsters are asking right now. But the real truth is this was simply a rigged race because the money came in mostly through Miriam Adelson and Paul Singer, the two biggest donors, who donate solely on the basis of Israel. This whole race was a referendum on Israel, as Haaretz declared. And unlike in the two other most expensive races in congressional history, which were also funded by Israel's unregistered cutouts, this was not done in a stealthy way. The defeat of Jamal Bowman, which cost about $10 million, and the defeat of Cori Bush, which cost about $9 or $10 million, was all done through a stealth pack. The ads that attacked them had nothing to do with Israel. The hand of Israel was concealed, even as these same Republican-oriented Likudnik donors were donating through those super PACs to rig a Democratic race. In this case, the Republican Jewish Coalition, which is totally funded by Miriam Adelson and her Bernard Marcus and other Israel First billionaires, they didn't even hide it. They said, the RJC's spokesman said, we are going to win this race. He's not even talking about the Republican Party. He's talking about Israel. So this was very clearly a shot across the bow to anyone who seeks to do what Thomas Massie did, which is introduce an Iran War Powers Act and actually try to pass it, expose the Epstein files, introduce a resolution or a bill to register AIPAC. No, you can't do that. However, what you can do, and this is what I find so interesting, this is what says it all about Trump and today's Republican Party, which is built around Trump, but it says it all about the forces that define Trump, which therefore define the Republican Party, is you can be a Republican candidate who's relatively loyal to Trump, but does not support mass deportations, which Trump campaigned on. You can be a Republican candidate who is relatively loyal to Trump on the Iran war and be moderately pro-choice on abortion, as Nancy Mace is, for example, and Trump won't seek to destroy you. And the line is Israel, and that is the most important priority of the Trump administration. That's what Massie's defeat demonstrates and is intended to demonstrate, and it exposes the whole farce of the Republican Party and Republican leadership going back to Reagan, because Republican leaders have always basically been fronts for the 1%, frontmen for the what you could call the capitalist class or the Epstein class. And under Trump, the capitalist class of the Republican Party, that wing, is militantly Zionist and Likudnik. So that's their priority. But how do you get the voters out? How do you get white Protestant or Catholic voters in red states or in swing states out to vote who don't have college educations? You campaign on cultural issues. You don't talk about Israel. And so Donald Trump campaigned on immigration, which was a real crisis when he campaigned in 2024. And he campaigned on, biological males in women's sports. And he used all the classic cultural wedge issues the way George W. Bush did. And now he's abandoned all of those issues. Donald Trump is not pushing for mass deportations now. He is not pushing, a hard line against trans folks, although he'll say something. His only line right now, his main red line, is Israel, the Iran war. And I should mention, he also campaigned on affordability because of rising inflation under Biden. He doesn't care about affordability anymore. He's demonstrating openly that he could care less. He's openly said that he doesn't care about affordability or prices, that he must continue to maintain a siege on Iran.
Iran can't have a nuclear weapon.
So this is it. I mean, this is the only meaning of Donald Trump, is his fealty to Likudnik billionaires who control him and represent Israel as the main driving issue in the Republican Party, to the point where they're actually trying to make Israel the main cultural issue among the Christian right voters, which are the most tightly organized bloc, making it more important to them than even abortion or, the gays. And this is highly significant, and it will define the Republican Party going forward.
But isn't a backlash to the Zionist dominance of American politics slowly building and growing here in the U.S.? Don't you feel that?
I feel it. I mean, everyone watching this is part of that backlash. And
yes.
But it's not going to play out in the Republican Party under Donald Trump. And Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they were representatives of the backlash. Massie has always kind of understood, he's always been opposed to like $4 billion in aid to Israel, but he became more outspoken following the Gaza genocide in a way I hadn't seen before. And Marjorie Taylor Greene had a complete conversion on this issue, and they were destroyed. So the real arena of contestation on this issue going forward for the next 3-4 years will be the Democratic Party. And we will see the Democrats in a much more insidious fashion seek to crush those who want to represent the heart and soul of the Democratic Party's constituency, which opposes sending weapons to Israel at rates close to like 90%. There is no pro-Israel grassroots constituency in the Democratic Party. And it will be, again, I think, another illustration of oligarchy and the undemocratic nature of the duopoly when we see those voices and figures get crushed leading up to the Democratic primary and convention once again.
Shortly before we came on air, the Justice Department announced the indictment of former Cuban President Raul Castro for ordering the shooting down of 1 or 2 planes that had taken off from the United States towards Cuba. I'm sure you can enlighten us on all this.
Well, this ceremony, I got to catch a few minutes of it before we went live. It's a ceremony. It's not a traditional press conference where the Department of Justice appears with grim functionaries announcing to the typical press who cover the DOJ in Washington at their building over on Pennsylvania Ave. This was in Miami. It was before a collection of the Miami Mafia's henchmen who have been involved in regime change and terrorist activity against Cuba for decades. There were cheers when the indictment of Raul Castro was read. And I think it's important for us to understand the history here, to understand how the Department of Justice is really flipping not just history, but morality and international law on its head in order to indict Castro, who was the defense minister at the time of this 1996 incident. Brothers to the Rescue was part of this wider mafia of groups that had engaged in CIA-backed terrorism against Cuba over the decades, especially spanning back to the 70s, actually the 1960s. And they would fly over Cuba in order to provoke the Cuban military, and they would drop leaflets calling for regime change, urging people to violently rebel against the government. And tensions were high in 1996, so high that a email from the Clinton administration that I have in front of me contained basically a prediction of what would happen if Brothers to the Rescue was allowed by the FAA to fly over Cuba. We've received information, this is January 22nd, 1996. We've received information from State Department that another unauthorized flight is going to happen in the morning. The plane, according to State, did not overfly Havana, nor did it drop propaganda. In light of last week's intrusion, this latest overflight can only be seen as further taunting of the Cuban government. Several Clinton administration officials protested with Brothers to the Rescue. Richard Nucio, who was the leading the point man on Cuba and Cuban negotiations at the White House, actually went straight to the FAA and to the Transportation Department to demand that they block Brothers to the Rescue from flying over Cuba because Cuba would retaliate. The Cuban government had protested with the United States, demanding that they stop these flights. They were violating Cuban airspace. Remember what happened in the U.S. when supposed Chinese balloons were flying over the U.S.? They were shot down by F-22s and turned out to be hobby balloons. No country would allow this to take place. But the bigger issue here is
about that.
This Cuban mafia that I explained. Brothers to the Rescue was not part of
No, Thugbone, I'm not asleep, you little shit. I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm reflecting, I'm observing.
peaceful network. Their godfather was someone named Jorge Mas Canosa, who was a CIA operative who headed the Cuban American National Fund, which was sort of the main nexus of all of these regime change operators in Miami. And Jorge Mas Canosa was very close to someone named Luis Posada Carriles, who was also a CIA operative, and Orlando Bosch. And those two figures, with Mas Canosa's blessing and under CIA direction, bombed a Cuban airliner, Cubana Flight 455 in 1976, killing 73 passengers. This was part of a wave of bombings going over that had been happening for years against Cuban shipping, Cuban hotels. Cubans were shot on beaches in order to prevent tourism from the U.S. to Cuba by this very network. And so the culmination of this conflict was the shootdown of these flights. But the Cuban government understood that these flights were part of a wider effort that had been historically backed by the CIA to actually violently topple their government, and no government would have tolerated this. So Raul Castro is being indicted for defending his country against CIA-backed terrorists, and his indictment will now open the possibility of another special forces invasion of Cuba.
Don't pay him any mind, Yassar Acid Fat. He's just a little shithead. He's my resident little pet. He's just trying to incite me. He wants to say mean things because he wants attention. Okay, people that don't get positive attention from their loved ones, they feel neglected. So what do? They go the opposite way. They want the negative reinforcements. Okay, they want the negative attention, and that's what this little troll boy does.
And his kidnapping at the age of 95, which would be disgusting and horrendous, and would bring it would not lead to the negotiation that I think.
I'm sorry, Jordan. I'm so sorry. I should just be yelling at the camera for 4 hours straight, right? The fact that we're listening to a podcast where you're supposed to be learning, but instead you're focused on tone copying me. Fucking despicable behavior, man. Have you listened to the past 15 minutes? Have you been learning? Because let me tell you something, I have. And the more that you slack off on this stream, that means a fascist somewhere is getting ahead.
That I think would be a proper solution for Cubans who are suffering under a U.S. oil blockade. And just one last kind of point or factoid.
I was just going to ask you to give you a chance to relax your voice for a minute. How old he is? He's 95 and they indicted him for something that happened 30 years ago?
Yeah,
He's a bad man.
It might even be difficult.
He's a threat to society. They're talking about Raul Castro, Jordan, if you've been paying attention. Castro's brother. There were threats to extradite him, to basically kidnap him, like a la Nicolas Maduro.
Transport him, but the scenes would certainly be pathetic and upsetting. Marco Rubio announced a plan to essentially do regime change in Cuba today. And that plan is being heavily influenced and directed by someone named Jorge Mas Santos, who is the son of Jorge Mas Canosa, the CIA-backed terror don in Miami. He is the billionaire owner of the football club Miami Inter, and he is at the heart of the Trump administration's plan to take over Cuba and privatize as much as possible. I think there does need to be a deal. There does need to be a negotiation. Cuban people are suffering so much right now. We sent a reporter at the Gray Zone all across Cuba to experience what Cubans are experiencing, their excess deaths. You're seeing depopulation in towns. People have to go to black markets to get antibiotics because of the siege. And there's simply no energy. There's no lights. So there has to be a solution. But the Trump administration's solution is so maximalist that, and they're now.
Martin, you little shit, man. Do you want a sticker or a cookie? My God. Is it all about you, Martin? Are we just here to serve you? Are you not entertained, Martin? Are you a pioneer? You really are a trailblazer, Martin. God damn it, Martin.
Basically putting a gun to the head of the most historic figure of Cuba's revolution, that it makes a real negotiation and a real deal impossible. I can only.
Oh yeah, well, when I see Martin Crank's name, I get sick. In other words, I have to puke in my mouth a little bit because I despise you, Martin. God damn it, Martin. Your fucking Danish ass bullshit. You know he's Danish, you guys? Fucking Danish, dude. Who gives a shit about the Danish? I'm just kidding. Actually, in accordance with the YouTube community guidelines, we do not disparage any nationality or ethnicity. And shout out to all the Danes there that I offended. I'm working on my rehabilitation arc. Thank you, ZGB, for congratulating me like none of these other fools did. On us, we all reached 100K on this stream, okay? This was a group effort, and I want to thank you. We're still here. I'm very grateful for that, and it's onward and upward, okay? Here's to another 100K, all right? Cheers. Cheers to you. Everybody clap. I said everybody clap. You're not clapping, are you? This is a problem. This is really bad. I can't believe you're not clapping. It's like I ask so very little of you, and then you don't clap? Why would not you? Is it because you... Just clap, please. Just do it. Thank you. Thank you. Clap for yourself, okay? Clap for you. This is about you. It's not about me. Okay, it's a little bit about me, but enough about me. What do you think about me? Go ahead. Tell me what you think. Only if it's positive. If it's not positive about me, fuck off. I don't want to hear it.
See harm coming out of this.
Is Raul Castro in the government today at age 95?
No, he's not. And, you know, I know that the government is eager for a deal, and the Trump administration keeps saying they're just too foolish and corrupt to make a deal. But for many months, especially Marco Rubio, who comes out of this, who represents the more extreme wings of the Miami Gusano
Thank you for that completely unprompted, unsolicited compliment, just apropos of nothing. That's what I'm talking about.
He has rejected any form of negotiations with Cuba, and now he's basically given Cuba an ultimatum: accept $100 million in donations through a delivery mechanism that we choose.
Oh, yeah, Big Ronnie? Well, how about you jack these nuts? Right, Ronnie? Right, big bad Ronnie boy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want my jacket, huh? You want to jack it off me?
Which will allow us to install a parallel government on your island.
Sick fuck.
Or face more death and misery. And again, I just don't see how any sovereign, self-respecting...
I love calling people sick fucks. It's so harsh. It's just like, you sick fuck. It's good. Half the time I don't really mean it. It's just fun to say.
Government can accept that. The best thing to do, by the way, do American taxpayers want to spend $100 million to send to Cuba? Why not just lift the embargo and we spend nothing and just allow business?
The government doesn't care about taxpayers. The president is in the process of taking $1.8 billion from the Justice Department.
That's right, sweet Caroline. We did. We made it happen, all of us. But don't misspell my name again, okay? Or else I'll have you face the wall. I'm not rat bone, okay? I'm not a rat. Do I look Israeli to you? Don't answer that. I don't. Look at my profile. See that? You see that physiognomy? You see that? Look at that. Look at that. That is a perfectly symmetrical, very Christian profile. Not that it matters. Not that it matters. Not that there's anything wrong with being Jewish, of course. To my Jewish brethren out there, please. I'm not coming after you. We stand for the Jays. The Jays are special, remarkable excuse me, people. Sorry. And We don't tolerate anti-skepticism on this stream, okay?
To give it away to his political allies from January 6th.
And to his family. I mean, it's just a slush fund to protect a criminal mafia. That's all it is. While Marco Rubio declares that Cuba is actually the criminal mafia. I mean, the levels of projection are staggering.
Yes. Max, thank you very much. I know we covered the full gamut.
All right, let's move on.
Yes, we go live, Lisa.
Let's see what... We're just going to see a little bit. I can't stand Mario Nawful, but I still watch his podcast from time to time because I like his guests, of course. Thank you, Mortiferum, the ever uber eternally based, objectively based Mortiferum. Always throwing down for the stream. Always keeping it real, brother. Here, give me a dap. Thank you. Everybody clap for Mortiferum. They're doing the heavy lifting tonight, okay? I said clap. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, shut up. Shut it. Shut it. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it. Shut it. Okay. Thank you, Mortiferum. Morty for the win.
A lot that has happened in a very short period of time. So first we get a report from Axios that Trump and Netanyahu.
All I see when I look at Mario Nawful is Elon Musk's butthole, which is not a pleasant sight. And I've never seen Elon Musk's butthole, but I imagine it looks something like that. Everything that Mario says is straight from Elon's anus. You know that, right? He opens his mouth over the bleached butthole of Elon Musk tard, and just whatever comes out, Mario then regurgitates to his audience. And hilarity ensues every time.
One source described Netanyahu as having his hair on fire after the call, with Israel's ambassador to Washington reportedly informing U.S. lawmakers of Netanyahu's concern.
So this one's talking about heated arguments in the White House. Larry Wilkerson always got the goods. He's always got the tea of what's going on in the White House, behind the scenes, pulling back the curtain. So let's see if we learn anything new.
Though the embassy denied the characterization. And Netanyahu is also planning a visit to Washington, of course, in a few weeks. Then we have Israeli media that said there was a heated debate.
That's pretty good. Mario Twat Waffle. I like that. That might be what I use next.
White House between senior U.S. officials.
Two Marios,
there was
one
J.D.
cup.
Vance and Witkoff and Kushner that were pushing for an agreement to end the war, preliminary agreement to end the war. But
I didn't know. It's called Doing the Clinton. Got it.
And Marco Rubio demanded pressure and a strike. Trump ultimately decided to give another chance to diplomacy and negotiations, but he did criticize J.D. Vance for allowing Iran to stall. Netanyahu and UAE President MBZ supported a tough line, while Saudi and Qatar preferred avoiding escalation. And then there was a call with Netanyahu and Trump, where Netanyahu expressed frustration over Iran's stalling tactics. And then most recently, we got the update that the U.S. has sent a new proposal
to
Iran.
Oh my God, Mario, shut the fuck up. Just ask the question. We're not here for your drivel.
Development oil prices dropped by about 6% as the news came up, and the odds of Trump offering oil sanctions relief or the unfreezing of Iranian assets increased by about double, from about 15% to now about 30%, 25 to 30%. So all that happened within a 1 hour period, because that's the world we live in. What do you make of this? Because that comes after, 2 days ago, Trump allegedly calling out a strike that was imminent after the Gulf. The UAE, Saudi, and Qatar called against it. And then 2 days before that, Iran sent a pretty significant warning by a drone strike on a nuclear power plant in the UAE. So there's a lot there to unpack, Colonel. Would love to get your thoughts on it.
I think it's just the warp and woof, such as it is, of what's happening with regard to this conflict. I don't think Donald Trump really has a constant idea of how he's going to extract himself from it. If the reports of the contentious discussion with Netanyahu are accurate, and I don't necessarily believe they are, but if they are accurate, then he's found at least some gravitas to deal with the main reason he's in this war. And that would be a positive. But all the rest of it is noise around the edges, as far as I'm concerned. It might even be another attempt by the Trump clan, now that they're excused from ever having the RS in their knickers, as it were, to make money off the stock market.
He just said the N-word.
And to make money off the changes in the prices that are occurring. The statement he made that just boggles my mind, that he does not care about the financial situation of the American people, I think is more indicative of Donald Trump than any of us might want to.
How much would it cost us? So you weren't even paying attention to what's going on the screen. You're just looking at my tabs at the top of the screen. Oh, what is he looking at? What is this? And you saw a tab that said, "How much would it cost to blank blank blank?" How much would it cost to blow your mom's back out? I think is what the full query was. Turns out she's really cheap. She's a cheap lady. No, I know he said Nick-ers. He's referring to the pants. I don't even like saying that word because it sounds too close to the thing. If you were here earlier, Jack Walk, you were not attention maxing, actually. Because if you were paying attention, see, that's the problem. If you were paying attention, you would understand that I showed you that tab. And we had a whole segment about how much would it cost to house the homeless for 1 year. And the answer to that question was something like $7 to $10 billion, if memory serves. And I was just, doing a little thought experiment. And then I asked another question, and I said, how much is 1% of Elon Musk's net worth? Turns out it's the exact number that it would take to house the 500,000 homeless people, or whatever the number is now, in the United States for a year. And that was that, all right?
Wish or think it would be. So he's not concerned with any of these things that you've just, pinpointed a few. What he's concerned with is getting his ass out of this war. And that's what we're seeing reflected right now. Delaying tactics until he's figured it out, if he ever does, but nonetheless, delaying tactics.
What about the news with the IRS that came out in the last few days? I haven't been following this, and you kind of hinted at it. I know it's unrelated, but I'm curious, what happened exactly?
Well, it's not unrelated, really, if you think about it. It actually excuses the Trump family in legal terms, if the Congress majority leader has said some adverse things about it, I think, soon. But it actually excuses the entire Trump clan from ever being looked at, reviewed, or having its finances examined by the IRS in the future. It's an indemnity for him to do whatever he wants to do with his wealth and his family, too.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely insane. And it's his former lawyer, now the new head of the Justice Department, that's made this claim that this is going to be in law. I can't see the Congress going along with it, but then again, they've gone along with other things.
The agreement reportedly says the IRS is forever barred from pursuing certain past tax claims or audits tied to Trump-related entities.
It's so spiritually Israeli. This is the same sweetheart deal, it sounds like, that Jeffrey Epstein got in 2008 in Palm Beach, Florida, where they baked into the, I don't know what you would call it, I'm blanking on the word, but they baked into the agreement that Jeffrey Epstein and people that were associated with Jeffrey Epstein could not be tried for future or past crimes, which is just insanity. It sounds a lot like what the Department of Justice is doing about Trump's tax forms.
Yes. Gives them a get out of jail free card with regard to wealth and income taxes in the future, as I read it. Now, one could surmise, or one could speculate, that maybe someone somewhere is considering early retirement for Donald Trump, and this is a sort of this is what we'll give you if you agree to it, whether it be under the 25th Amendment or what. But I can't figure out why they would be doing this and why it would be so blatantly thrown in our face the way it was. And this is just one of the things. The statement about not caring about the American people and that Medicare, Medicaid, and all the rest of the stuff is not important. That what's important is fighting this war, and the money to fight this war, and any other war obviously is assumed there too. It's also absurd. And he's tanking in the approval ratings. He's just tanking. He's just going nowhere but down. And this business with Massey and
no, that's not true. He's going up in Israel. Apparently, he's leading in a poll in Israel. 99% is that's what he told us. For the race for the new prime minister of Israel.
Money that was spent to defeat him, I think, even with his own base, such as the ones in there that maybe are following Tucker Carlson now or others like him and having some skepticism about what they've done with themselves, was augmented and reinforced by that, I think, because it just pissed independents off majorly, according to the polls. That we spent more money than we've ever spent in our lives, and most of it was Israeli lobby money, on defeating Tom Massey, and that we barely defeated him. And the only reason we really did, in addition to that money, was because of the primary system and the fact that he was running in a Republican primary.
Yeah, that's true. And also, it's only above the age of 65, I think above age 60, that voted in favor of Massey. All the other age groups voted in favor of the other guy, Ed. But all the other age groups voted in favor of Massey.
All right, let's take a look at this Robert Reich post. He's attacking, like I've been attacking, Jeff Bezos for his nonsense. This says, this is what Jeff Bezos doesn't want you to know. The super rich have a secret playbook to get away with paying almost nothing in taxes. This is exactly what we're just talking about.
Billionaires now pay a lower effective tax rate than working Americans. One reason why? Trump's tax cuts. Another reason, we don't tax wealth. While workers live off paychecks that are taxed, people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk don't. They live off their wealth, which is mostly tied up in the value of their stocks.
Gay.
Unless they sell off those stocks, their taxable income is small, but they don't have to sell in order to reap the benefits. Billionaires can use their massive portfolios as collateral to borrow the money they need to finance their lifestyles at low interest rates, lower than the rates they'd pay on capital gains or income taxes. Should billionaires be allowed to get away with this? Absolutely not. If we want the wealthiest Americans to pay their...
They have the worst coats or jackets or whatever. Look at this.
Wealthiest Americans to pay their fair share, we've got to tax their wealth, not...
Hey, look at it, and look at his smug smile. He's like, yeah, we're elites.
Americans to pay their fair share, we've got to tax their wealth.
I'm Jeff Bezos.
Not just their income. A wealth tax.
They look very edible. They look delicious, in fact.
Now, billionaires now pay a lower effective tax rate than...
Sound like my cat drinking water. This is going to be an ASMR stream.
הם באו עם הרבה גאווה כגיבורים גדולים. תראי איך הם נראים עכשיו, תסתכלי.
Look at these, we shamed them.
עכשיו.
We shame all the activists. They're trying to feed poor people. We shame them. They think they're heroes. They're not heroes. No, no, no.
טרור. אני אומר לראש הממשלה נתניהו, תן לי אותם לעוד הרבה זמן. תן לנו אותם בבתי הכלא של המחבלים, ככה זה צריך להיראות.
It's got to be tough waking up being that chode. That is a tough gig, man. Lots of hatred. Can't be good for your heart to live that life. That's no good. I think that was Itamar Ben-Gvir himself assaulting one of the Gaza aid flotilla activists. Welcome to Israel. We are the masters. That's beautiful. Look at that. Treated like cattle. I'm Israel Kai. It's got to be tiring having to say that everywhere you go.
כן. זיכוי, כל המטרה כאן זה לראות שאין אנשים בתהליך. לא להתרגש מהצעקות שלהם, לא להתרגש.
You just can't do it. You can't embolden arrogant, self-entitled, narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic, parasitic. Did I say arrogant? This is what happens. You're like, yeah, all these arrogant sociopaths, let's give them their own nation state. And let's give them all the best weapons and the best technology. What could go wrong?
Crunch for a manager. Who needs enemy?
Crunch discovered there was uranium in the abandoned mine under Ghost Town and was trying to scare everyone away.
I did forget demonic, you're right. But yeah, I agree with you, Indigenous Rat. Karma, do yo thing, baby.
It's against the law to sell uranium to anyone but the government. And he couldn't do that without spilling his secret.
So he used the bat truck to sneak the uranium across the border, where he sold it for
This
a
can't be
whopping
real.
profit.
Yeah, but what about Tyrone's roar and the shaking ground?
The
This
roar,
can't be real.
the Indians' war cry, and that loudmouth gunslinger were all recordings timed to cover the sound when they dynamited to get the uranium out.
Crazy bat.
Scooby Jew? What are we watching here?
All of a sudden, she's calm as a mouse again.
Dingbat only went crazy when Crunch came near her.
The uranium dust on Crunch's clothes fouled her radar.
Yeah.
Look, he's got a chin that looks like a nutsack.
The same thing happened when we were in the mine. Your worries are over, Ding.
How are kids supposed to follow? I can't even follow this plot line. You think kids are supposed to understand what's going on?
Yo, girl. No more fouled up radar.
I'm so confused. Is this a real Scooby-Doo episode?
Congratulations, Scooby. I hear you and your partner captured the uranium smuggler's single pod. Oh, that was nothing.
Say, Sheriff, would it be okay if I took home this little bag of uranium as a souvenir?
Why, sure, son. Hey, kids, look. A superhero sandwich for Scooby and Shag. Oh, my.
Grok, is this real?
Here, hold this uranium.
You lied it.
There's just... Sophia, what is going on here? It's silly. Is Trump okay?
On the Iran deal, would you be open to a limited deal that just covered the Strait of Hormuz?
Hormuz?
On Iran, just a limited deal just for a longer ceasefire?
We'd have to open the strait. That would open immediately. So we're going to give this one shot. I'm in no hurry. You never think, oh, the midterms, I'm in a hurry. I'm in no hurry. Ideally, I'd like to see few people killed as opposed to a lot. We can do it either way, but
we can do it either way. I'm perfectly willing to sacrifice more sons and daughters of the country.
I'd like to see few people killed. I just wonder whether or not they have the good of the people, because some of the things they're doing to me means they don't have the good of the people, and they have to have the good of the people.
Some of the things that Iran is doing to Trump means that they don't have the best interest of their people. The fact that they slighted Donald Trump is a slight against the Iranian people. Is that what I'm supposed to understand here? What? Are we looking at an Iranian woman that needs to be liberated? Is that Donald Trump? He's the symbol for Iranian oppression? Whatever you do to Donald Trump is what you do to the Iranian people? What?
For 40 years, Netanyahu is trying to have a war against Iran. I don't know what they have on Trump. But with Epstein, with the files, obviously they have a lot on Trump. Hamas did exactly what the Egyptians did in 1970.
Look at this guy's mustache. It's like a little tiny caterpillar. The mustache is actually in his mouth more than it is on his lips.
Israel doesn't want peace.
Israel never wanted peace. Palestine is the basis.
This looks like something furry came on his mouth.
Is the home, is the heart of what they want to do, a larger empire, which is they call Greater Israel. They are against any power. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. They are against them.
It's like he was trying to shave his mustache and he got so close to doing it, he's like, fuck it. I'm tired. I'm going to go have a sandwich. And he just kept it.
Israel is an investment in controlling the Middle East. The brutality that Israelis are using...
That would be so aggravating. I can't even pay attention to what he's saying because I'm just thinking, like, how do you live with that? That doesn't seem comfortable.
That
would be
really
annoying.
Terrifying. That's
sorry,
why I
I'm
call
trying
it
to
a democratic genocide, because most Israelis...
That's right. He brought up a great point. This is the most democratic genocide in the history of genocides. So thank you, Israel. We can give that tip of the cap to Israel for doing that.
Are involved in it. Jews and Muslims have never actually fought. Jews lived with Muslims everywhere in the Muslim world. Americans sell arms. Americans destroy.
Dirty work, you mean?
Dirty work, exactly. These are the words that of the German chancellor. So this is the first thing that we need to understand about Zionism, that it's disruptive. God is telling them, you shall kill all those people, because I say so. is that the high point of this festival of Purim is the celebration of a genocide. Of course, you have to say, they beheaded babies, they raped women. Everyone in Gaza there are no innocents. And not only that, we'll do it in the West Bank.
He needs to wipe that spoiled, dried milk off his face. And then have the interview. John Podhoretz celebrates the role that Jewish money played in defeating Representative Thomas Massie. We have to use what means there are at our disposal, and that is the Jewish money. This is an existential issue for the Jews. Anti-Semitic candidates need to know they're going to have to go through a buzzsaw, a Jewish buzzsaw, to get elected, he says. What other choice does American Jewry have? We gotta subvert democracy. We're the Jews.
I think it is a good thing if Massie and the people like him and others believe that if you cross the line into anti-Semitism, Jews are going to use the power that we have openly to go for you. Because what other recourse is there? Are we just going to sit here and take it, beg for scraps, hope that nice people are nice to us? The Democratic.
We hope that nice people are nice to us? You just called them nice. I've never seen a Jew beg for scraps. I mean, come on, let's not church it up too much, right? You guys are I think you're doing okay.
Party is going explicitly anti-Semitic. We can see it happening. People are getting benefits, as Seth says, for being anti-Semites. That seems to be part of an appeal in primaries to the left and the party. We have to use what means there are at our disposal. And in my view...
Yeah, well, most younger Republicans don't like Israel as well. So it sounds like it's a bipartisan issue for you guys.
I'm going to put it blank. That is Jewish money. There is an enormous amount of Jewish money in politics, by which I mean Jewish donors.
Wait, he's just... What? That's an anti-Semitic stereotype, Mr. Spielbergstein. Why is it okay with it? They say it. They acknowledge it. They're not anti-Semitic for saying that? If I said that, I would be labeled an anti-Semite. There's a lot of money going on. There's a lot of Jewish money in politics. What? Excuse me, sir?
Disproportionate, not only charitably, but politically.
Yeah, disproportionate, a.k.a. overrepresentation, right?
When I say charitably, I mean nobody really knows the numbers. Jews make up 2% of the population. According to some studies, Jews make up 20% of the charitable contributions made in the United States.
Charitable
annually.
Contributions.
That is a tenfold. Think about that.
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. It kind of sounds like the Jews are rich, right? Sounds like the Jews actually are doing really well, so much so that they populate all of the upper echelon positions of all of our institutions across the economy, the government, and they're able to be in positions to give charity, apparently. Although I'm questionable about what charitable organizations that the Jews are donating to. Might it be other Jewish organizations, maybe?
The disproportion of that. And in politics, it's pretty close also. And if that money isn't used, why do people give money? Because they want to influence elections to get people elected who reflect their views. Well, this is an existential issue for Jews. And the Jews who explicitly give money...
Remember, guys, never forget they have a monopoly on victimhood. They're never not the victims. They never miss a golden opportunity to center themselves as victims, even amidst the I'm trying to think of the right word. even in the midst of all these war crimes that they're committing, obviously, even in the midst of the one and only Jewish state, obviously, live streaming a genocide of children. But trust us, okay? It's the Jews that are the victims.
Because they want to make it clear to anti-Semitic candidates that they are going to have to go through a buzzsaw and that they are not going to simply waltz in.
Buzzsaw, you say. But when we talk about the guillotine, we're the lunatic left, right? We're the murderous lunatic left, as Elon calls it. Meanwhile, we got Jewish supremacists talking about buzzsawing all of us for calling out exactly what he just acknowledged, which was Jewish supremacy rampant in our government. I'm tired, boss.
And be, if they're treated with kid gloves by the New York Times, we are double time going to do what we can to expose who they are.
We're going to go double time.
Find out what we can find out about them that will harm them, and that we will do what we can to prevent them from taking office. What other choice does American Jewry have?
What other choice do we have? You guys don't want to get along with our genocide. What are we going to do? It's your fault. You did this. We will never forgive you for making us murder your children.
观察另一名队员呢，现在释放了一个仿生鸟，它的作用是现在呢看到的是仿生鸟
the fuck
在
is
空中呢
this?
进行对我们前方的区域进行前期的侦查。它仿生鸟的特点呢和真的。
The Chinese military actually have drones disguised as birds now. That is, on the face of it, dystopian, but the fact that it's China, I'm like, maybe that's good. And then people are going to be like, oh, you see, he's a China apologist.
So there is a...
Oh, my God, no.
Young...
I'm not watching an hour-long video of Bad Empanada talking about Nick Shirley. We've covered Nick Shirley's propaganda campaign out of Cuba on this stream, so I don't think we need to revisit it. Especially, Sam, this is an hour long, and it's not somebody that I'm particularly joyous or feeling very joyful to watch. But he has been pretty based, Bad Empanada, on Twitter, some of the things that he's been saying. He's been parroting things that I say. Not that he's copying me, I'm just saying, like, we're saying the same things, which I appreciate.
As you may have noticed, that many of the people who are the most anti-Semitic in the Republican Party, the people who traffic in anti...
If you notice, the people
Israel conspiracy theories that shade over into anti-Semitism pretty clearly, those people are being clocked by President Trump. Not because this is like a top issue for Trump, but because those same conspiracy theorists, I do not think it's coincidence. If you're a conspiracy theorist about Trump or Epstein or in general about the world, if you traffic in grievance politics, you're likely to end up in that category, and then Trump is likely to clock you. So as Thomas Massie is being ushered out of the GOP, same as Marjorie Taylor Greene, same as Joe Kent, and all the rest of this, Democrats are embracing every anti-Semitic, anti-Israel nut job they can find. Literally all of them.
We are all Legion. Ben Shapipu. We are the nut jobs. We are many. We're coming for you. You little weasel.
Good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk about Nicholas Kristof's column in the New York Times. He reported on horrific allegations.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that never got stuffed into a locker. He never got properly bullied. And this is what happens. You empower arrogance, you empower cynicism, you empower contempt. And this is what these are the people that you get.
Sexual abuse of Palestinians in Israeli detention. And the Israeli government's response was to immediately accuse him of blood libel. To prove Christoph was creating a false symmetry, they held up a 300-page report on Hamas's sexual violence on October 7th. The claims the New York Times ignored it. And they're right. The Times did ignore it. But here's what they're not telling you. The New York Times did not publish it because the journalists likely looked at it and decided it wasn't credible. It wasn't a neutral fact-finding mission. It was compiled by an Israeli government-backed group assembled specifically to counter the Hamas narrative. Think about it. If the New York Times, one of the most respected newsroom in the world, doesn't trust your evidence...
The most respected newsroom in the world? I beg to differ, sir.
Why should anyone else?
Says who, sir?
So what did Israel do? They couldn't get it published in a credible paper, so they held onto it for months. Then, the moment Christoph columns dropped, they released it to friendly outlets and on social media, not to inform the public, but to deflect from criticism. This wasn't journalism. It was a PR counterattack. They used a report that failed journalistic standards as a political weapon to smear reporter for telling the truth. And here's the most important part.
Here's the most important part. I'm getting my foreskin back, okay? I don't know about you, Andrew, but I've been on a lifelong quest to reunite with my foreskin. I've been searching high and low. And I'm going to get it. I tell you.
I mean, reading texts saying that he's starving, that he's almost passing out in line waiting for food, or they're running out of food while he's in line waiting to get his food. You know, I mean, it's not unusual for somebody to text, "I want to come home," or to even talk to their family members when they're in when they're in a war zone or a deployment at sea, anywhere.
I was duped. I was a baby.
Saying, "I want to come home." I mean,
I was duped.
We all want to go home when we're there. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. But when you combine that with the fact that they are either not getting food because...
That's a good point, Hot Dog. We want 5 skins, okay? We don't want just what we got back or what we had. We want with interest, okay? It's a Jewish tradition.
They're running out, or they're getting the smallest portion of food that is not even sustaining them for, 3 hours during the maybe 2 or 3 hours, because they have to go back to work. And I don't care what your political beliefs are. If you raise your right hand and swear an oath to the Constitution, you should not have to be worried while doing that whether or not you're going to get adequate food at all.
This is not the first we've heard of
that sounds anti-Semitic. Are you...
story. In April, USA Today broke this story that other family members with sailors...
Dan F. was alarmed when his daughter, a Marine aboard the USS Tripoli, a warship deployed to fight the Iran war, sent him a photo of a meal served on the ship. A lunch tray, 2/3 empty, carried 1 small scoop of shredded meat and a single folded tortilla. That's the goy meal. What's wrong with that? That's standard. A picture of a mid-April dinner on the USS Abraham Lincoln shared by a service member with his family was similarly unappetizing. A small handful of boiled carrots, a dry meat patty, and a gray slab of processed meat. I saw that picture. It was disgusting. But, the Soviet Union had bread lines.
Aboard the Abraham Lincoln and the USS Tripoli were also not getting...
or some shit.
enough to eat, that sailors were reportedly, quote, rationing food supplies, and that there was no fresh produce aboard the ships, and that families were so concerned that emergency care packages were pulled together to get these military family members non-perishable snacks and personal care items, etc. But the U.S. Postal Service had temporarily suspended mail delivery to 27 military zip codes after the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. And the Army had said that there was no suspension date in sight. And Zisser says the family that he's in touch with is also trying to get care packages to their sailor. Zisser also said the words the sailor used to describe himself is, quote, starving, and that he is dreaming of McDonald's. Here is another screenshot.
I only eat what your mom serves me.
Of his alleged breakfast. You can see that his tray is basically empty. He writes, quote, this was my breakfast. I showed blank this. Even he said on his deployments, he never got fed like this. I mean, you guys, these are empty trays.
It's like they were deployed to the salt mines. Tales from the salt mines. Today we only received one goulash. Okay, let's talk to George Galloway. Nope, let's not do that because it's 2 hours long. Petrodollar. Make you holla. I'm going to make you holla and scream for sharing that link on stream. You think this is a dream? What kind of scheme do you think we're running here? Homie, don't play that.
Something very sick and evil is happening in Israel's jails. And
you don't say.
Almost nobody is talking about it. Israel is running, and let's be absolutely explicit about this, a system of torture camps. Welcome to hell is not an exaggeration. 9 Israeli reservists sodomized by inserting metal objects up the anus of the prisoner and causing terrible internal injuries.
This is leaked CCTV video of what Israeli military police allege was a detention.
How many Israeli grape videos do I need to see before I violently vomit in protest? Israeli soldiers caught on video. Once again, victim suffered ruptured intestine, severe injury to anus, lungs, and broken ribs. Israelis rioted for the right to grape. Ministers defended grapists, and one even became a celebrity. All charges have been dropped. This isn't just Ben Gavir, it's Israel. Yeah, but I hope you'll forgive me for not showing the video. It's just I've sat through so many videos of this. I probably have even seen that one. But I hope that's okay with everyone. I know, I like George Galloway, but it was 2 hours long. I can't do that. I'm sorry. I got things to do. And then this guy's still trying to push Kyle Kulinski down my throat. No, thank you. I say no. I say no. Good day, sir. You win nothing, sir.
What's the ticket for?
Possession of graffiti instrument.
Possession of graffiti instrument.
What were they drawing? They were drawing a pot sticker.
Possession of graffiti.
Oh my God, it's literally chalk.
Instrument. You can't help someone right now because you're...
You can't.
Yeah, that's
what?
Nazis were just following orders too.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, we're going to give
Disgusting.
you a
That's why no one uses these parks. No one is here, and there's millions of dollars paid on our parks, and they're disgusting and trashy because police come out here and fuck with people. I know you say you don't want to, but think about how fucked up this is. Police tax dollars are being spent. You're being paid to mess with me over chalk right now. 3 officers to tell me about sidewalk chalk.
Somebody called it in.
And that person should get in trouble and be told, don't fucking waste our time over sidewalk chalk.
Yeah, somebody called it in, though. Got to do it.
Like,
I'm just letting you know.
Look, the chalk is a problem, okay? What is this supposed to be? Is this flowers? What are you trying to do here?
You can't do that here.
This isn't graffiti.
Okay, you gotta go, man.
Chalking up the neighborhood.
We're getting calls on you. And we're not gonna be
It's
coming
not
on.
against the law, though.
It's against the law. Pick
Can
somewhere
you
else
show
to
me?
go.
Because it has to be.
Show you, man. Listen,
it has to be
I'm gonna ID you
indelible.
and put you in cuffs. Take you in. Now you either get your shit and go, or we fucking go to jail
Look
for
at
it
that,
and
yeah.
let them figure it out. The courts.
Might makes right. Don't question authority. How dare you, sir?
The deranged occupant of the...
Again, you're sending me more links that are above 15 minutes. Somebody slap this man. Whoever this is, he's in the chat right now. Slap him. Slap him silly and call him a silly little freak. See, now this is something we could do. 4 minutes long. Nice. Easy. Simple. Concise.
Hello? Yes, I'm sorry. Could we talk a bit later?
Sorry,
I've got these people being interviewed. You know,
Daddy would like some crumpets.
The interviewers about the Nakba.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't grasp the gravity of the video. I didn't mean to make light. This is a visit with a Palestinian Nakba survivor.
Yeah, I was 9 years old. It was nighttime, and my father came into our bedroom and told us, surprisingly, to get on all fours and make our way to the staircase that goes in to the roof. There were no windows on the staircase because bullets had come in through the wood shutters at that stage. And next day, we just took what we could carry and went to my uncle Hussein's house in Nablus, because there was no fighting in Nablus. The Zionists were, you know, coming into Jerusalem.
Yeah, we know about the Nakba. We do know about that.
My father had a big, heavy key for our iron front door, and people, of course, locked their houses when they left, and all they had of it was the key. When it turned out that there was no going back, that's what they had in their hand from the house, and they probably just hung it on the wall, you know, so it became sort of a symbol. You have the key, but not the house.
During this period, the Haganah, Irgun, and Lehi militias, among others, destroyed more than 400 Palestinian villages and cities, killing thousands of Palestinians and carrying out dozens of massacres.
Actually, they're very good, because this is here, so the woman walking, you know, it would accentuate her hips. And there are certain smells. There's a smell when, after a rainfall, when that limestone has a certain smell when you walk near it, you know, it's just, you feel very close to the actual land. The story is about the Palestinian boy going into Israel, and his grandmother said, go to our village, bring me a handful of soil. I'll put it under my pillow and feel I'm sleeping, you know, in my village. It's very strong.
It's like they've lost everything. All they have is their symbols. That's right, just like the chatter said, Nakba never ended.
That I've lived in different places and I've always been an outsider. You know, in England, actually we were called aliens on our passports. I lived in Italy again.
It's got to be psychologically traumatic.
And after the 67 war, I came here. In this diverse city, I feel most at home since leaving Palestine. I think that's important. And it's where you are. I don't know what happens to you, but you know, I've seen the Rockies, and it's the soft hills of Palestine that actually touch me.
That was a good video. Thank you for that. I'm gonna end the stream now because I've been streaming for 4.5 hours. So I did a 2-hour stream with Nick. We did a 2-hour stream here, and my dinner just arrived. But I want to thank you for joining me once again. I love you guys. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all again. Yeah. Thanks, JJax. Thank you, Kate Game. Thanks, Eyeballs. Thank you, Gato Server. Sorry to kind of cut it short, but like I said, I've been streaming for over 4 hours now. I need a break. So, but I'll be back tomorrow. Okay, guys. I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful night. Peace and love. I'm gonna be eating some pizza. Since you wanted to know, or I ordered some pizza. Love pizza. Not the Epstein kind of pizza. Just regular pizza. Follow Comrade Batty on YouTube. Yes, forgot. I have to shill my what's my duty? Look, we could get Comrade Batty to 1,000 subscribers. Look at that. She's so close. With that being said, I'm going to wave bye-bye. Peace and love.